Good morrow, good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Poetry Studio. My name's Joseph. Here we do poetry, we do verse. Here we fix poems, we make poems, we rewrite poems, we do anything involving poetry and art here nicely in the wee morning hours, at least here in Virginia. But elsewhere in the world, it may not be the wee morning hours. So, good morning. We have Steve Disco Newsome in the chat. Welcome, Disco, back to the stream. Really appreciate you being here. Timoni and Dan, as always, pleasure. LJ Gibbons, good morrow, lovely people. So, this morning I only have one thing that I kind of need to do. I definitely need to fix 2 stanzas in my poem Keycaps. Later on this week, we're going to probably do a fresh typed poem of the Typewriter horror poem. That's a Typewriter horror poem that I'm working on. It's a lot of fun, but it needs to be in a typewritten format for its publication, which it is going to probably get published. I would be very surprised if it wasn't. It's going to be worked into a collection of typewritten poetry called Cold Hard Type. Well, it's not typewritten poetry, it's typewritten work. So that'll be a lot of fun when we get to that. So today I just need to kind of fix some stanzas and make them improved. And then after that, whatever you guys want. I'm interested in writing more new things. I've been so caught up in my projects that I like to escape and get into new verse and new topics and new ideas. So, as always, welcome to the stream. So let's get started. How is everybody this morning? I know for myself, I am if I don't get sleep several days in a row, like good sleep, I just get real tired. I'm kind of sleepwalking through this one though, this level with you all, but it is good to be here. That's one of the great things about it, is that it keeps me accountable to getting my writing done and getting on the computer. And yesterday we had such good conversations. Shout out to everybody that was here yesterday. Oh, that is perfectly fine. Super lurk. I'm super lurk on most of the things that I do. That's the funny thing about it is I am often just pouring myself into whatever task, topic, thing that I've got going on in front of me and during the day. And I'm often very much lurking in most of the things that I'm doing. But I know that, like, on days that I actually stop and I just kind of settle into the chat and settle into, like, maybe not a chat as ours, because ours is a little slower, but like the live stream chats, Disco's chat, Kira's chat. I have a lot of fun when I settle into those chats. I'm just doing some edits right now. I'll shift back to the camera while I'm doing these edits. So one of the suggestions that my editor suggested, I need to speak this morning, is that I should make it clear, because this poem could be read one of two ways. It could be read that the typewriter came to life and attacked the writer because the writer had writer's block, or the typewriter attacked the writer and came to life because the writer was writing garbage. And the second is a lot funnier. And so my editor said, and the quote I wrote down from my editor is that I need to include literary verbiage to make this guy the worst writer on the planet. That this typewriter is tortured. Good morning, Fool Killer. Good to see you. Story poems are interesting. And the story poem has developed over time. So we'll have some poetry on the stream soon, as I am working on the edits of this. Verbose. So what are words that you would use? Here's a quick question for the chat, because this will help me on my first stanza. I'm also rewriting the first stanza. What are some words that you would use to describe a writer that is not good, or writing that is not good? Turgid prose. Man, Telemony and Dan read my mind before I even asked the question. I know about the delay. Turgid prose. That I think, like, it's stuff like that. Feel free to drop in any suggestions if you have anything. Because the language I originally had was, all I wanted was to share the mystic idea in my mind and combine my imagination with ink, but the keys, oh damn tease, did not reveal with any ease a plot of story that could please. And so it was the lack of revelation. It was, oh, I don't know what to write. Now that could hit home a little bit, but it's more so that the writer has trouble with writing, like, if it's better if it's writing garbage.
Akira.
And then I also literally say writer's block in another stanza, which I've got to eliminate. I just wrote the line, curse my turgid prose transposed on the typewritten page. Lost in the fog of ineptitude. I wrote that down as well. These are good. These are real good. So yeah, so the two big changes are the writer is, and I have to make it clear that the writer doesn't have writer's block. He is he's just a terrible writer, and as a result, his typewriter takes revenge on him, which I think is just such a beautiful image in its own twisted, in a funny way. It's a sort of humorous, lighthearted, demonically warped aesthetic. It's quite literally a demonically warped aesthetic, but that's horror, you know. That's what horror is. Which means that if the man's writing is so bad, or the writer's writing is so bad, then the typewriter might as well insult him, right? Because the two stanzas I'm working on are the one where the typewriter forms a sentence in the air using the keycaps, and then, and for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I am writing a horror poem about a typewriter that comes to life when a writer fails to write a good story with it. So the typewriter comes to life. The typewriter actually attacks the man by basically stabbing him. Then it comes to life as as keycaps forming sentences in the air, and then it starts to disassemble so it can engulf him, with the punchline that the man becomes a typewriter and the typewriter becomes a man, and that man can then sit around and write whatever he actually wants. Like the words I use, incomplete is not it. It's not an incomplete nightmare. It's a terrible, like a poorly written nightmare. Alrighty, let's hit the paper. Fool Killer has a fantastic idea, which it wouldn't fit in the conciseness of the poem, but if this poem ever became something more, it would work. And Dan asks a great question too, so we'll get to that in a sec. But Fool Killer says it would be funny if it attacks him due to starvation from lack of blood, sweat, and tears. Play on the amount of work he hasn't put into his craft. It's a random idea. So the funny thing is there's so many split-offs from this story that you could do. Like, the idea melding that kind of happened here was typewriter and demon, and it just kind of enveloped out of that. And so what my editor said is that for this collection, I should publish this, get this published in a collection, but he said I should revisit this idea later on and really work this thing. So I mean, I'm going to put that in the back of my mind. And then Talmonian Dan says something. Here's a question. Do you want the writer to know he's writing poorly? And I actually really struggled. I struggled a little bit with that as well, because the fact is it's the writer, it's from the writer's voice. And so if we have a terrible writer, how is he able to technically create this beautiful poem? Because I'm the author, but the speaker is the terrible writer, and yet he speaks pretty articulately. But I've decided to kind of just work with it that I think I say something in one of the final stanzas, that the experience triggers the realization among the author. Like, he realizes, oh, I'm a terrible writer, and then he becomes articulate, but by that point he's a typewriter. And so it's almost like a tragic thing. That's kind of the subtext. So, and it's kind of like a recollection of it. What I would say is I feel like I'm writing this poem would be good for me to write in a year or two. Like I feel like that my skill set is not where I want it to be to create this as well as I want to, but I am doing it anyway. Thanks for the posture check, LJ Gibbons. I was definitely crouching over my typewriter. I gotta be careful because if I get too close to this machine, it'll attack me too, especially this big beast. And my typewriter. No need to worry unless you're writing turgid prose. There you go, turgid prose. So that would be the next two stanzas. Even though there's going to be more edits that kind of go through this, but I really want to hit these two big stanzas after that. Thoughts on palindrome poems? What are good thoughts on I think that palindrome poems are fun. I think that I used there. It's not called a palindrome, but there is a form of literary structure, which is kind of that reversing, where you say, and I use it in here, where I talk about the storm. Goodness, I just yawned like crazy. A storm of metal, furious at my torturous tinkering, now tinkers with new torture in return. And it's one of I've written a lot of lines. It's one of my favorite lines I've ever written, because a machine is furious at my torturous tinkering and then tinkers with new torture in return. It kind of goes forward and back. That it's not a palindrome, but it's kind of like a word-based palindrome. It's one of my favorite lines ever. Oh, I messed this up. Better repeat insulting my poor writing. Well, I'm running into writer's block, attempting to come up with the constructions to articulate this. That's it. What? Something like poor writing. I don't like that construction. I just deleted 3 lines that I spent probably about 10 minutes trying to work on. And I'm going to blend these 2 stanzas. And there's my favorite line. Storm of metal, furious at my torturous tinkering, now tinkers with me torture in return. All right. Let's read the poem in full. See if the linking up of these new stanzas works. I had a lot of trouble with the stanzas I was supposed to be working on today. Let me see. I'm just gonna maybe make some line edits before I read. Normally make lines from the sentence of sentience. I can't bear to repeat. Insulting, poor writing, deriding, and mocking my best attempts at success. With words of artistic, of aesthetic finesse, Hold on a second, I got really excited by that line. Breath caught in throat, shocked in silence, seeking my breath. Seeking to articulate words to negotiate with this mechanical reprobate. I neglect to see the rest of this machine pull itself apart, become a cloud of parts, swirling and preparing an attack. You then. Alrighty, let us get this read. And then we have LJ drop the poem, so we'll read his after. But I'm excited to Finally put together all the pieces of all the drafts. All right. So forgive me if I have to bounce back and forth here. It's a lot of writing on all these papers, but I want to make sure that this sounds good to me. Okay. Keycaps. All I wanted was to write something of beauty. Create the mystic idea of story with wit and wisdom, not my serfdom to confusion. Inept collective letters making no sense. Denseness of metaphor, a bore, chore of turgid prose transposed on typewritten page, filled only with wordy woes. I cursed the machine, curse its lack of inspiration, its foul futility at my hands, cursed a million crumpled papers strewn on the office floor, cursed it all to writer hells for the fault I failed to see as mine. To my surprise, 42 glass-capped letters disappear before my eyes, leaving knives in their place. My fingers mid-type helpless, haplessly stabbed by silver gleam, now bleed true languidity onto the page, red ink of vein escaping and reaping in its revenge. Those escaped keycaps now swirl and multiply around me, making lines forming a sentence of sentience I can't bear to repeat, insulting my poor writing, deriding and mocking my best attempts at success with words of our aesthetic finesse. Breath caught in throat, shocked and silent, seeking to articulate the words to negotiate with this mechanical reprobate. I neglect to see the rest of this machine pull itself apart, become a cloud of parts swirling and preparing an attack. Storm of metal furious at my torturous tinkering now tinkers with new torture in return. And the enlarged attack pieces swarm, type bar teeth stabbing into my side, gears spin and slice inside, springs link together and form a chain, twisted metal nettles bound arms as I'm bludgeoned by platen hard, and seemingly endless ribbons spinning, wrapping my head, body, vision to mummify, bind, and blind my unstoried sight. I attempt to cry out, but find my mouth is full of the guts of my companion, ivories broken by a spinning smattering of glass, plastic, metal, and rubber, and feel the soft torn skin begin to harden, feel my own blood begin to thicken, my own panic breath springing with metallic coil, my eyes crystallize and ionize into keycaps of their own, letters settling into place as I become a molded soul, now turned into the very machine of my demise. I am a typewriter, and my typewriter a man standing before me, brushing his shoulders and smiling at his newfound, hell-bound, compounding escapement into living. The man looks longing at my letters, and all I can feel is a desire for a story to write, to speak my own incredible imagination into existence, triggered to boundlessness by the cold prison I found myself in. But alas, he sits, and I cry ink onto his page, his story, a slave bade to do his bidding, pounding pain with each press of the key, an endless sentence to death with the rhythm of the click, click, ding of the tolling of my bell. I think it clicks. No pun intended. I think that I want to clean up the first stanza a little more. And I need to clean up this last stanza, believe it or not. But, I mean, at this point, it's ready. It's got to be ready. I have to be ready, but it's ready. And then we had L.J. Gibbons at a poetry drop. And I'm going to read his poem now. Right from the top to the bottom of this planet, people scared, people label so they're able for their egos to explain it, always complicate, full of hate. Then when standing at the heaven's gate, they thought they had life wrapped up. They thought they were made of granite, but they took life for granted until one day they woke up. On the other side of life, scary, nothing filled their cup. Always busy, back soon, too enchanted by the moon. When the darkness comes for you, tell them I said, what's up? Ah, sharp, sharp words from our LJ Gibbons. I like it. And I give you a lot of credit for doing the granted alliteration, and I'm gonna say it straight, not having it be trite, because a lot of times that comes off a little trite. But you, I think it worked. It worked very well in yours. Um, I'd love to know the typewriter's backstory, says LJ Gibbons. Well, one of the things I tell you, between Fool Killer's suggestion and my obsession with this poem, I am really digging into this storyline. Like, there's so much more that you can pull here. Like, it takes what's the haunted typewriter cliche? Like, I feel like that's what happened here with this one is the haunted typewriter cliche. Not that's this is I don't think this is a cliche, but the typical haunted typewriter cliche is you have a story about a typewriter that starts writing on its own. So I kind of flipped it and kind of made it so that the typewriter was alive, but it did so much more, and I'm very happy with it. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Thank you, LJ, for your awesome words. Oh goodness, I'm still thinking about what you wrote. Always busy, back soon, and too enchanted by the moon. And when the darkness comes for you, tell them I said, what's up? Ha! And always complicate, full of hate, and then they're standing at heaven's gates. They thought they had life wrapped up. Took life for granted until they woke up. Man, I love the rhyming in your poem. Great job. So LJ, great job. Telmoni and Dan, thank you so much for your kind words, and thanks for being here. We had Disco in the chat. I hope you had a good time. And Food Killer as well, making awesome suggestions in terms of, and I think Ineptitude did make it into the poem as well. So thank you all for your suggestions. I'll tell you, my brain was not awake this morning, and we all managed to make it awake, and I really appreciate that. Take care, and you have a wonderful day, and welcome again to the Poetry Studio.